Sally Burton-Hoyle is with us, and she is an associate professor at Eastern Michigan University, which is a member, and she is a former member of the Autism Coordinating Committee, the IACC, and I don't know if we'll have time to talk to her about that, but if she's able to join us right now, what we really want to talk to her about is the College Support Program, and specifically what that is like at Eastern Michigan University, because this is how more and more across the country, universities have made a plan, have made a roadmap to help our students transition successfully to college and complete college. So there she is, Sally Burton-Hoyle. How are you?
Fine. How are you all?
I'm so excited that you have sound and can hear us. That's a really remarkable thing.
I worked on that.
You did well. You had a plan.
Good.
We've already been talking this morning about how important it is to have a plan, and I that's part of the reason why we wanted to have you come and be on the show. And I've said that Eustacia Cutler is the person. You come with great credentials. She's the person.
Yes, right.
Have Sally on. So Sally, tell us a little bit about what you do.
What I do, I'm a professor at Eastern Michigan University and had started our grad program in autism and our undergrad program in autism. But with college supports, along with Dr. Pamela Lemerand in 2010, we envisioned having a college support program for college students that could get into college. But as we know, the success rate for lots of students on the spectrum, no matter how brilliant they are, no matter how high their test scores are, that they simply haven't done as well as their potential indicated that they should. So we started this program with the idea that we would, within the university, as part of the university, be able to foster relationships with departments and administration and housing and all those kinds of people so that we could make it a more comfortable arena, but also to provide those specific academic and social supports which act as the barrier for students on the spectrum.
Yeah, we do a jargon of the day, and our jargon today was the individual transition plan.
Okay.
And we were talking about those three elements that it's supposed to plan for, that, to help a person with where they're going to live, where they're going to work, which work can mean a lot of different things, and their social construct. And so it seems like to me what you guys have done is said, okay, we're going to take this person to college and we're going to help them on all three of those things.
Right. Navigate all of those areas. And it has to be individualized. So because each student needs and desires the same different things.
Well, that was going to be my next thing, is that while it's a program, you guys make a point of celebrating the individual. Is that correct?
Yes, it is all about the individual and their strengths. It is a strengths-based program. And, when you go to college, there are these horrible gen ed classes that you have to take, that everybody has to take. And those are kind of difficult. So we want to make sure students are reminded of what their strength is. And that can carry them through to a degree and to a career. I want to give an example of a young man who, like many of our people in our community, loved Thomas the Tank and, Thomas the Train. And so as he was in college, a history major, I helped get him an internship after his junior year at the Henry Ford Museum. And he worked with the archivist on the trains. And they even have a Thomas train, an authentic Thomas the Tank train that comes to the museum. And so he was able to work on that. But what they did there too is they really enjoyed that they want strengths. And so they used him to find out what is it that they can be doing more for people on the spectrum.
I love that. I mean, I think there are a lot of parents around the world right now whose heads just went, right? Because I think people tend to put kids into categories and go, well, these kinds of kids can go to college and these kinds of kids can't go to
Right.
college. And if
Right.
you are obsessed with Thomas the Tank Engine, we don't think you're in that category.
Right.
And you just
Right.
opened up a lot of people's imaginations.
Right.
Who do you think is right to go to college?
I think that, first of all, anybody can be right, but having been in this, I was director of the Autism Society of Michigan prior to my university position. So I've worked with families forever and ever. And it's a journey, as we all know. I had a brother on the spectrum. It's a journey. So it's like, I always, some people are ready to go to college. And some people are not. And so first of all, you have to get into college, so you have to have whatever that the requirements are for the university you want to go to. But you also then have to have some level of maturity and understanding that you need to follow like the constructs of the program. We've set it up so that it's all individualized and it's flexible. However, there are certain things you have to do. For instance, you got to go to class.
Yeah.
You got to take a shower, two important things.
Yeah. It seems like one of those duh things, but, I used to teach college professor here, and I can't tell everybody the amount of times that I had to explain to somebody, if you don't want to be here, if you don't want to go to classes, then you should not be here. But part of being here is going to classes. It's very confusing for a lot of college students. And I'm not talking about individuals who were on the spectrum. There are a lot of people who get there and go, oh, this is a world. And it is.
Yes.
And they get confused about, I think I'm supposed to be going to hockey games, not class.
Right. And as we know how big the spectrum is, there are some students who want to be social, who want to, do all kinds of things. And then there are others that don't. So we let each student define community in the way that makes sense to them. One of our students that just graduated, I bet the first year, we went to his room on a daily basis and made sure he got to class. But sometimes it was me beating on the door and like it was the police there or something saying, get up, put your pants on, let's go to class. And now he doesn't want to leave college because it was like his third year when he figured out, oh, well, this is kind of fun to go do these things. So, and when I work with families and we have an interview process, when they have to be admitted to Eastern Michigan University first, and then they apply to us. And then we interview the student separate from the parents, because sometimes the student will say, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this at all. The parents are going, yes, they do. But if the student doesn't want to be there, it's not successful. But another point is the differing levels of maturity for anybody that's an 18-year-old young man, right? Raising 3 boys, everybody had a different level of readiness for college. And that's why community colleges are amazing and awesome, because you can go, I work with families, say just like take one class, get your driver's license if that's a possibility, get a job, life is long, right?
Yes.
The journey and then maybe they finish, our best students have been those that finished a community college degree. And then and they're like, okay, well, they kind of understand that as we all know, autism, to listen to a lecture, sometimes kids think, oh, they're having a conversation with me. And so with students that haven't had prior college experience, they might just then answer. They interrupt all the time, but they're not interrupting. It's just that they see that the professor's chatting with them and not the group of 40 or 50 or 100 or whatever.
So I want to back up on some of the things that you just said there, because I was going to say, is it possible for someone to go to community college and then transfer? But you were just saying that's like your best case scenario.
Oh, yeah, that's great. That is really, really great. Yeah.
Okay.
I recommend that.
Okay. Very cool. Well, that's a good thing to know. So when we had spoken the other day, one of the things I know that I started the conversation thinking, I don't think that my son needs the thing that you do.
Mhm.
By the end of the conversation, I was like, oh my gosh, I think my son needs the thing that you do.
Yeah.
So I would love it if you could talk a little bit about what kinds of things, challenges that students might have, because it's a wide variety of things on a
Right.
college campus
Right.
that
Right.
end up being to their detriment
Right.
that you guys can help with.
Right. And some of the, again, if you don't continue to focus on strengths, students can get lost in that. Why am I taking this class? Why do I have to take this speech class? I don't like to talk, all that sort of thing. And so what it is we do for each student is I'm faculty advisor. So when the student gets admitted to our program, we help the family make sure the student gets his letters of accommodation with the Disability Resource Center, of which has to be in any college that takes any federal funding. And that means that any students that take FAFSA, then that's when that counts. Because sometimes people say, oh, my kid's in a private school. If anybody gets FAFSA, then they have to follow the ADA, Section 504, the Rehab Act, and provide accommodations. I make sure.
But hold up for 1 second, because there are people who are watching who have kids that are in like 3rd grade, so they don't know what a FAFSA is. So let's.
Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
It's student aid. And so it's like all the people that owe lots of money on student loans, they have filled out a federal aid. I forgot what all the initials stand for, but it's student aid for college students.
Okay. So if your child is in a public school or private school, if they've filled out that FAFSA form, they are entitled to be covered by the Americans with Disability Act, and they can get accommodations during their college. Now, here's an important thing, because if you have not conserved your students, if your child is 18 years old and you didn't conserve, if you're just sending them off to college, then they have to do that entirely for themselves.
Exactly.
And you don't get a say as a parent. You don't get to call the professor and go, hey, he turned that in. The professor will go, I don't talk to you.
Right.
But if they're in the college support program, does the family get to participate or no?
The family participation is a huge part in this program. And having grown up with people with autism, I am not ever about to say, oh, your kid's here now, they're mine. No. It is that the family is the expert on the child, right? So, it's kind of like heavy freshman year, especially for semester freshman year, we're going to work and try to problem solve with the student. But sometimes there's going to be just where it's like, no, let's ask your mom and dad. So we do lots of FaceTime meetings. We meet with the student once a week, and with some students who require, we all know kids and their moms too, that's a close relationship. So there are many, many moms who speak with us on a regular basis, and it happens as much as it needs to happen. I have never seen where it goes past maybe the first year and a half. After that, when we contact them, and I'm always the first one, is like, have you called the parents? Because if we're, experiencing some difficulty with the student behaviorally or something like that, or talking too much or in class, or, not getting along with their mentors. Each student has a mentor that goes to class with them. And when it is they, data has shown that they don't need anybody to go to class with them. And usually that's maybe after year one, then they go on their own, and we do a check-in, check-out system where they come in the office, and we, there's a form that they fill out that makes them keep track of what's happening in the class. And so then what happens after a year, and they can do that on their own, then we, transition them out even more for independence. But we still do weekly meetings. Each student has a college academic support coach. So they meet with them, and that then students using their Google Calendar, all things are accounted for. How are they getting along with mentors? And then that mentor or that coach then also might check with the professors. What I do as faculty advisor is I work with all the faculty, and I do trainings in lots of different departments. And the beautiful thing about colleges and universities is there are many professors who might be on the spectrum. And so there's a lot of understanding. And I'm going to give some initials here. So like a little,
okay, we'll get ready.
FERPA, F-E-R-P-A, and you referred to it a minute ago, and it's Federal Educational Rights Privacy Act. So when a student is 18, just as you said, when they go to college, as parents, they cannot call. Well, in the college support program, we have students, that's part of it's a requirement, they have to waive the FERPA, so that then I can talk to the professors, and then I can convey all the information to parents, because we don't want to put that on parents, because that's, I mean, as a professor as well too, it's like not anything, it's like you're busy enough, but yeah. Because we're there within context, then I can meet with the professor. And one of the main things that I do at the beginning of the year, I go around to all, 100 plus, and luckily some of them have had our students before, and I make sure they understand the legal accommodations. So if you were not in our college support program and you do not have FERPA waived, then it is upon the student to go up to each professor and say, I need these accommodations. And in college support program, I handle all that. So that then, and again, the transition, we want students, it's important that they learned how to state what their needs are going to be. But the main reason for that is because when they get a job, they, at any point in the job interview or upon acceptance, they need to tell somebody that they would need accommodations.
Yeah.
So we want students to understand that, but it's difficult for most people to then go up to the professor and say, hey, you have to do this. You have to give me my test in a separate room and things like that. So I handle all that part.
Yeah, I mean, I think parents are pretty savvy too. They've seen, when the IEP, you go through the whole machination to get the IEP right, but then there's this whole thing about, does it get carried out correctly, right? And there are all these little adjustments that parents have to do, and they're calling and they're like, well, no, because the IEP says this. And then there's this gaping hole. The structure is still there for college, but you really have to be an advocate to be able to, for yourself, to be able to access it correctly, and to throw somebody into that cold pool as a freshman and hope that they're going to get it right is a big, big ask. I love, one of our viewers wrote in and said, part of the problem with the way our academia is that they expect one to learn a subject in just a few short months. And not only that, you have people who need accommodations, and those are not always met. But what I see this college support program is doing is casting the net around everything so that nothing falls out. Which is pretty amazing. So, but again, because we got a little sidetracked, but it was good sidetrack. But talk about some of the things, because I think we all forget that we've seen a lot of individuals go off to college with great intentions, spending a great deal of money. Everybody's hopes are high, and then it doesn't turn out well. What are some of the things that can mess somebody up? The
one thing, difficult thing for families to understand, but it's an important one, is that when you have a child with autism, there's usually not just autism, and they might not have displayed significant anxiety or depression or things like that. But neurologically, about college time is when some of those things might occur. Plus, they're not at home. They're in the dorm. They've got, different teachers, and they switch every semester, and all these things that are like, when we're in the autism world. And so the coexisting disorders, somebody having depression, and one of the things that I train and all our mentors and all our staff to understand is that behavior is communication. And so if you've got a student who doesn't, you go to get him and he isn't going to go to class, and he starts talking very, very loudly about the steam engine's going to rise. There's going to be rise of the steam engine, talking very loudly. And what that means, what that behavior is communicating is that, whoa, I am so, overdone. I don't know, I'm behind in my work, all these kinds of things. So we have to kind of interpret that. Now, if we can't get our way out of that, then we do talk to families right away and encourage them to get some clinical support, because we're not a residential hospital program or anything like that. We are a college support program. So I would say that the coexisting disorders, you have to understand that they are there. We've had students that, on a Saturday, for instance, a young man had a seizure. And as we know, seizures don't always look like seizures. This was a student walking around in circles and saying things from a movie, repeating things from a movie. And so the library staff at the university just called, the security, for the university, who then they took him to the psychiatric ward. And those are the kinds of things that, we're with them. We have study tables 7 days a week. We have pretty much daily contact, but there are going to be times when they are out, they're out on their own, like any college student. So I would say that really understanding how your kid shows anxiety and what that could rise to is important for any family to know.
Absolutely. We got a couple of people doing shout outs here. Somebody says it's always great. Always a pleasure to listen to Sally. Always provides such great insight. And they're saying hello to you from ASLA.
Okay. Yes.
So what a wonderful thing.
My buddies.
And other people who are saying, yay, CSP. Because people should understand that you guys have been doing this for a little while and you got a great track record.
Right.
So how long?
Well, we started in 2010, and we started with one student, and that's with Dr. Pamela Lemerand and we are the ones who started that, and she's retired and in California, so maybe she's even listening there. But we started with one student because we thought, let's get it right with one student. And this was a student who was had the diagnosis of mutism, because he couldn't, he would get anxious and then not be able to talk at all. We started with him, and the accommodations that we used with him were life-changing in that, if you can't give a speech in front of the class, the professor could let you give the speech in their office. Okay, so we learned lots. We get smarter every day, right? Because every student is different. Every person on the spectrum is so different. So we started 2010 with one student, and we now have 33 students. So we have gone up slowly. We do not get any support from the university. It's all, it's parent fees. This is a fee-based program. So students pay their tuition and all that kind of stuff, plus then our program.
Okay, so let's break this down a little bit. First, you have to apply to the college. And we should say that your college is not the only college that does a program like this.
That's exactly.
How many universities around the country do this? It's not a huge number, but it's not, two.
It's growing and growing and growing, because I would say there's probably 50, and I would say every family needs to approach the university of their choice in their area and say, what kind of specific college supports do you hold for students with autism? Because there can be some that, one of the first ones was Marshall University, Western Kentucky. Rutgers has one that I've heard is very good. So there are many programs that have just, Mercyhurst in Pennsylvania. There's a lot of them, and each of them kind of have their own thing. Ours is individualized. So we have students, encourage them to live, to get a medical accommodation and have a room by themselves, because students need to be able to take on the social world as they can, not like, oh, let's get you a roommate. And I think any of us can think about nightmares that we had with horrible roommates, and that's not the way to start college. So we have them get a medical accommodation, then they have their own room. They can take on, whatever they need to take on. And then some then learn how to really, associate with other kids in their dorms and participate in activities and things like that. So, it's individualized. So that the student that we go knock on their door and we provide socials that the students come up with a couple times a month. And many of them want to go because they're going to take the Uber to downtown Ann Arbor and get pizza and things like that. And then there are some, and we all know people on the spectrum that would rather die than be associated with anybody else with autism. That's okay too. That's okay too. So social can be things that you create yourselves. Is there a Dungeons and Dragons club on campus? So we go with you and we help get you set up. We have students in fraternities and in sororities, because that was really important to them. And then because of the FERPA, then waived, meaning that we can talk to people, then we have a relationship with the Panhellenic Society so that we've given trainings regularly and fraternities about what autism looks like. So that's been very exciting, because then we talk, it's May now, it's not Autism Awareness Month anymore, but we all know that the more people understand who people are on the spectrum, the more acceptance there's going to be. So
absolutely. So the first thing they have to do is to identify the colleges that they want to go to and see if they have a program, reach out to them. And then they have to apply to the college and get in.
Well, yeah, for hours, yes. Yeah,
okay. So you get into the college, and then you apply to be in the college support program.
Right. Yes.
And for your program, that involves at least an interview with the family.
Yes.
Where you outline all the different things, because you've already gone through a bunch of things, that there's a social program, that there's a study group, that there's somebody who goes to class with you.
Yes.
What does that person who goes to class with you do?
That student, that's another undergraduate, an upper level undergraduate, and they sit and as close or as far away as needed by the student in class, and the professor knows that this is a student that's in there to support the other person, but no mention of it is ever made.
Yeah, they're not wearing a T-shirt that says I'm with him or her. They're not waving and going, I'm an aide. They look like another student, and they're in there taking notes, right?
They are other students, and we don't hire that are not students. And so then they take notes because auditory processing is the weakest link when you're on the spectrum, right? So taking notes and then dealing with sarcasm. If you think of every single criteria in the DSM or autism definitions in education, in not understanding sarcasm. So, what if a person raised their hand and says, well, are you going to cover this on the test? And the professor very sarcastically says, oh, of course not. Why would we put that in? And for the student who is taking their own notes, they would go, oh, okay, I don't need to study that. Whereas we've got a mentor in there that says, no, that means. So they're there as social coaches to kind of interpret and navigate the world with them. So if a student needs to talk to the professor, then the mentor might work with them and say, hey, what are you going to say? And then maybe they come up with a script, or they kind of act as wingmen. All right, I see you really staring at that one particular person. Do you want to get to meet them? And then they might brainstorm with them how it is they get to meet them. So and it's all right on the spot. So it's all happening. The support is right then and there. If a student, let's say, is picking their nose in class, the mentor might text them and say, use a Kleenex and don't pick your nose. So it's like it's handled right then and there. And then work with the faculty and they let me know if there's a mentor that isn't doing a good job. So,
yeah. What I love is that there's lots of points of communication, because a lot of times, even just, I have a high schooler and I send him off to school, and if nobody tells me what's happening, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. Right. And I always hate it when after the fact, somebody says, well, we struggled with this. Really? And I didn't know, like I could have done something. Right. You could have done something. I could have told you to do something. Right. So communication is key, and you've got several different points. Okay. Yeah. So they apply to the college, they get in, they apply to the college support program. They come and they interview to see if they're a good fit. What kinds of things are you looking for the right fit?
We're looking for the student's ability to follow what the program is. And how that turns out is study tables, so it's like, will you go to a study table? Now, and we individualize the study tables. Maybe they check in and then they go and they're going to work with their professor, and the mentor heads over there with them. So maybe they don't have to sit in the same room with us, but there are approximately 12 to 15 hours a week that students need to be in study tables. And we have study tables 7 days a week. So we try to, within their Google Calendar and their academic support coach, work that in so that it works with the student. If a student needs to eat first, if they don't want to eat until noon or whatever it is, that all is worked out according to what works with the students.
So it's a big time commitment on their part. They have to go to their classes, and then they have to go to the study tables.
Right.
And they can't try to do the executive plan and go, well, I'll just go to some of it, some of the time.
Right.
That's not allowed.
Right. Well, and, one of the things is that, we tell the students, like, hey, dude, if you're sick and you need to stay in bed, text us and let us know. That's what you're doing, because then, we would let the mentor know. Because usually how it goes is the mentor has an arranged meeting place with the student. At the beginning of the year, they might go to the dorm and wait in the lobby and walk over with them if the student will allow that, needs and doesn't mind that. And after that, it might be that maybe they're waiting outside the classroom. But then maybe they're in the classroom. Well, let's say it's 10 minutes into the class, 15 minutes into the class, and there's no student there. For health and safety, the student then will text us and say, hey, so-and-so isn't here. And then we will, we'll say, all right, go and check their dorm room. And then worst case, and this has only happened 2 times in all the years I've done this, we've had to have police come do wellness check. And generally that was because of a student's abuse of technology, meaning they were playing video games until 5 in the morning and then they overslept and they couldn't wake up. So the technology part is a huge thing. And that's next to coexisting disorders and psychiatric issues, that technology, that's something that families, as their kids are in high school, begin teaching them how to, at bedtime, check it in.
Disengage. Yeah,
Disengage.
It's hard. I'll tell you, this COVID stuff is not helping that, because we're having to lean into the technology. And I know it's very squishy for me. I'm trying to check, are you playing a video game, or are you in class, or are you playing a video game while you're in class?
Right.
No, my head has not exploded once this week. No, that didn't happen. But, my husband and I are reminded on a regular basis, the checking in thing. And it's been scary to me to think that, we're only a year and a half away from him going to college, and who will be checking in then? Right. And that's part of why I love this whole college support program.
And that's why we came up with it.
Yeah, because it makes sense. And I gotta say that this probably would be good for every student, right?
Yeah, right.
But how nice that it's there for our kiddos on the spectrum. But you mentioned that it's an additional cost. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yes,
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's fee-based, and why we do the interviews is that if we see, yes, you're able to follow the program, we don't expect anybody to be perfect, but can they follow the program? Then we come up with a support plan, and the costs range from $4,000 to $8,000 a semester at this point.
So, and a large portion of that is paying for that person to be in the classroom taking the notes for them, right? That person has to be paid.
That is exactly right.
And my understanding, and everybody hold on to your pearls for a second, is that it's not something that there is funding for in generally.
I want to say that in vocational rehab across the country, there is money targeted for students' support for college. Now, you have to word that in a very, very careful way. But we have students from several states, and one particular is at the District of Columbia. They pay, their voc rehab pays for air flights home, books, the college support program and a portion of tuition. There are others, I think in Illinois, where they might help with tuition. So there is support. So go get your case open with your rehab services. And in California with your, probably with your regional center as well, because I know that's a conduit from some of the things that I've done there in California.
Okay, wonderful. But it is a commitment financially. It's an additional cost. College is already expensive.
Right.
And because I want us to be realistic about this, and I gotta say, too, I don't know that anybody has ever applied for this through a charity that I work through, but you could through Autism Care Today.
Yes.
You could absolutely apply for a grant for this kind of thing through Autism Care Today. You can go to act-today.org to learn more about that. But, you know, it's one of those things where people go, well, I don't want to spend between $4,000 and $9,000 extra a year for college. But if you're going to spend, you know, $20,000, $40,000 to send them, you'll want them to come out with a degree, be well-adjusted, educated, happy people.
Right.
And if it's if it's $4,000 to $9,000 more to make that, it's good money, is what the point that I'm trying to make.
It is money.
Yes, I had a small heart attack thinking about it, going, gee, that's not in the budget myself.
Right.
But I can see where we would want it to. A parent wrote in and said, nice to hear our kiddos will have support if they choose college. Hopefully this will help and will trickle down to the grade school levels. I just want to say you should already be having this kind of support at the grade school level. And if you're not, write to me because the thing that we're always thinking is let's get that to trickle up to the college because the support is supposed to be there for, and if you're not getting that, let's have another conversation about that. And somebody else said this is very helpful for group projects and for vague assignments on a long deadline.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, the student will get an assignment at the first day of class that says they have a 40-page term paper on a specific area with 25 peer-reviewed references. What the important part about how we approach things is that they go to their study table on a daily basis. We have record of kind of what it is their assignment is, and we can work with them on a daily basis there and then break things down. Most of the students in our program, I don't care how brilliant they are, cannot break down an assignment. So we try to break it into chunks, which is something, you know, we work on with kids all the way through, from grade school on up through high school. But it's really important that the students then accomplish a goal every week. Then that is also then the academic support coach then is knowledge of what that project is. And then at the weekly meeting might talk about that too. Now, where are you on this? And one of the terms we use lots is being respectfully assertive with, because we all know our students who are really good at saying, oh, I got this. Oh, I don't know. Don't worry about it. And some of our students have tried to dismiss the mentors and say, you don't really need to come with me. And then they're so convincing, the mentors will say, well, I left because I thought I didn't need to. No. You work for the program. You don't work for the kid necessarily. So that the student then can, we can say, all right, where are you in this project? Oh, it's back at my dorm. Okay, let's walk over and get it. Or why don't you show me where you are, just so I can see kind of where you are. That's really important, because if you don't do that, students will fall through the cracks.
And it happens every day. So you brought up with the mentors, like talk a little bit about what's the process. What do you train them, and who do they, I assume that they have to interview. What kind of people do you pick for those jobs?
Well, we pick, because we have students that are majoring in everything. We've got them in computer science, and animation and gaming is one that lots of times people start out in, but it is very difficult. So they don't stay in it very long, whatever it is. So we try to get students with content, with, you know, strong content in computer science and math and different things like that. But we've hired a lot of students through my students that are in the autism undergrad or graduate program. It's really important. They get training twice a month. And it's really important that the tenets of autism, it's like an autism 101 we're doing many, many times. And it kind of goes back to that people think, well, if they can talk, then they don't have autism. Oh, they're so bright, they're so high functioning. Well, no, none of that matters, because you have to understand and be able to understand the behaviors, communication, and how to help the student with their need sometimes to just like say something like, one student told the professor, "You sound just like a character from the Muppets," and it's like the professor then was like, "Oh, okay." And then he called me about it, and I just said, "Well, okay, well," and then that's what the mentor is there for. The mentors are, we go through an extreme interview process and then training and all that sort of thing. And we work that whole business around their schedules so that nothing interferes ever. Another thing I want to say too is that we're very proud of is that we've been getting many of our students in the program jobs on campus. There's some food service jobs and things, and so many social skills are learned in that environment.
And the mentors also help with that, with the work situation? Oh, that's great.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we help with all of it. And then, the idea too, especially with job, is that then things take over. And then that's where, I've done trainings with the cafeteria workers and some of the different fast food chains that are within the student center. So that then they're going to go, oh, okay, all right. No, Joel, you can't do that. So they learn how to not pussyfoot around with the student, but to then say, well, you need to do this directly.
But if you see that the student is doing well and they want some more autonomy, and you give them the ability to try to slowly go out on their own?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we all know autism isn't linear. So we've had students that their first year they had a mentor with them in every class. The second year they had a mentor with them in every class. And we start taking data on the mentor isn't having to do as much because the student is taking their own notes and making appointments with the professor and things like that. So then maybe that first semester of the next year, then we just have a check-in system. And then because autism isn't linear, it doesn't mean then it's going to stay that way. So that then maybe if things get bad and anxiety and depression and things like that pop up, then we're there to jump right back in.
And you're paying each person, it's an individual program, and each person pays for the services that they're actually using.
Right.
So if by the time they're a senior, they're not using anything more than the check-in, all you're paying for is the check-in.
Right. We start off with, we wanted to make sure that it wasn't a pick and choose thing at the beginning, because parents, my student, because I cannot tell you, I was laughing with a family last week in our end of the year meetings who was sure his student would not need ever anybody in class with them. And he was laughing, goes, "Oh yeah, sorry, I was such a skeptic," because he did need that. Now by his last year, he didn't need that. So then dorm checks, we do residential support. So we're in there once a week. But then it's like, no, we go in and there's perfect. One time we found out it was perfect, and we had a student that the family had hired a maid service. And yeah, that's the kind of money I don't understand, but anyway.
Well, there we go. All right, we are unfortunately out of time, but I want to really quickly talk about where can people go if they want to learn more about Eastern Michigan University and the CSP program there.
Okay, well, they can go to the Eastern Michigan University website, or they could go to email me, sburtonh@emich.edu. And I'm happy to direct people. We've got an office, and it's in the college, located in the College of Education, and so I have my hand in all things. So you can email me. I'll get you hooked.
And if you're wanting to know more universities that have this program, what's the best thing to Google?
Well, I would say Google college programs autism, because that's where you're going to get a list. And we have many families that have used that list to go and interview different places.
And we should say everybody does it a little bit different, correct?
Yes, Absolutely.
Okay, so don't
Absolutely.
assume that because Sally's program does it the way we just talked about, you got to do some research if you're going to do it at a different university.
Right.
But don't we all want our kids to go to Eastern Michigan now?
Yeah.
Sally, you did not disappoint. You lived up to all of Eustatia's praise, which is a very high thing. This has been so enjoyable, so informative. Thank you so much for being with us.
Okay, thank you, and hi to everybody that was watching me.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm
Hey, thanks for watching Autism Live. To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.